Hey internet, it is nearly the middle of January and I thought I should give you a bit of a wrap up of what's happened since November because I've recorded videos and then I hated them and didn't want to edit them. So there hasn't been a lot of writing going on. I did end up rewriting the first 2 scenes, which is the first chapter, and I'm happy I got them out when I did, that I did them straight away because I needed to bring that voice that I found at the end and chuck it in at the front to show how I wanted to do things, and it was so in my head on what I need to do for those 2. At least one of them's getting rewritten now because I've decided I want to change stuff about it. And then I did like small world building stuff. I renamed all my characters. So previously I had renamed like my main 10-ish, I want to say 10-ish, but it's not even 10. No, actually, yeah. My main like 10 characters, and that was good enough for me to get through the rest of November. But as I started writing the start again, I realized that, oh shit, I need to rename so many characters / give characters names. Because there is another king from a different kingdom that I just called King of the North. Yeah, that was it. And then his daughter was the princess. And I've changed her whole plot point now in my head. Like, having a step back and having a month and a half now in between when I was last really focused on it and now, so many different ideas form in my head and I'm like, oh my god, that's so great. So I renamed everyone, realized I hadn't named their parents, realized I hadn't named the guards that I kill at the start of the book. So I needed to name them because they might say each other's names. I don't fucking know. And I fell back into that pattern of certain people had certain names that were like pretty similar from pretty similar areas, but it was all a mix mashes of names on this continent, and I'm gonna keep that. I want to have this as like, it's a bit of a transient continent. The other thing is, I hadn't drawn a map for the story, and I have a lot of footage of me using the dice method to create a map. Didn't like it. I'm going to redo it, but it had me thinking about, I'd watched something that was like a history on the earth. What was that? The history of the world? You know, that one that came out a while ago, it was 20 minutes long. Rewatched that and I was like, so everything really popped up around like trade routes and water, and I decided that it's our world in a different universe where there's another landmass, and this landmass is like if the UK, Australia, Canada and America had a little baby but with more people around it and more to do with like the magic system that I've already invented. That is a continent that a lot of them lived on when they had magic, so that's why certain things happened on that continent. And it just makes sense in my head that I can't really explain it right now. Problem is, now I need to map it out. Oh, I also need to decide on seasons. Like, I have to work out where I'm going to put this landmass and how big it's going to be so that I know what the weather's gonna be like, because I don't think about weather. Like, in winter it gets a bit colder where I live, in summer it gets really fucking hot. I'm sunburnt because of that, but there isn't really distinct seasons. I would say like pretty similar to LA with more rain, because we have like drains and shit for rain and we get a lot of rain sometimes. And then I have to consider, like, do I want to put in a desert, because most continents have a bit of a desert to it. Even Australia has a desert. We call it the outback in Western Australia. And I realized I can use mountain ridges to like separate part of the island, and I was like, that's not realistic. Excuse me, just think about the continent that you live on, and then yeah, it is realistic. So that's a whole thing. I've been going through and kind of, I redid my mythology. Nothing really changed. I just worked out how to word everything better because I read my mythology and I was like, let's just rewrite it. Nothing's really changed. I have names for some of them, not all of them. Not all of them. I want to write the history of that continent because that will inform the rest of the world, and considering all my stories are going to take place on this one continent, as far as I'm concerned, it makes my life easier. And that's just the way it's always been in my head, which is also why there is so much concentrated magic and why on this continent. Like, there is magic throughout the others, but I'm going to give a reason why there's so much on this particular continent. I've decided I want to write a novella. I'm calling it a novella, but really I'm writing the first half of my character's life. I've had problem with my thinking. So 95% of my stories are YA. Like, every one of them, but this one and another have characters that are teenagers, maybe 20 at the end of a book at the most. And the other two characters are like 25, 26, so pretty like adult in nature. Like, how can I link that? Like, I can't change their ages in my head. They have to be that age for the shit that they built up and worked for and stuff. But then I was like, well, what if I write the first book as the novella, which is probably going to end up being really long. And does it have a plot? Not yet. I'm just going to write stories and then expand from there. Still, I think this will be my first story. I don't care if it's not YA or it's one that I can publish later because it just informs other stories. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. That was just a thinking of like realistic publishing stuff. I feel like, at least when it comes to fantasy, if it's YA or not YA, doesn't matter too greatly for the market. But that's because I'm an idiot, and it could. So we'll see how that goes. What else? I fell in love with the idea of a mute character that has a best mate, that they've worked out like a rudimentary version of sign language, which I'm going to have to research sign language for that. And I just like fell in love with this idea that there's this mute character that probably had their tongue cut off by the era, and everyone will say shit in front of him because he's also illiterate, so obviously he has no way of communicating. And then like my main character, or potentially the princess, is like, oh my god, that's cool. How many people talk in front of you because I don't think he can tell anyone? And people will be like, what do you mean he can tell people? And she'll be like, well, oh, you're fucking stupid. And I don't know, in realizing that I wanted to do more with the princess that comes into my story from the other land of the King of the North, I randomly got an idea that like, she's a lover and brought to the castle against her will to marry this king that she doesn't want to marry, but she's like the youngest of 5 or something, and that's why the king's gonna marry her off because that's what your duty is as a princess, kind of. But she just wants to run away with her lover, and she sees what's going on, kind of gives Freya, I have to remember how I'm gonna pronounce her name because like I have it in my head but I don't say it like a lot. Anyway, my main protagonist, and my main protagonist is gonna help get her out. But what if the lover was infected with blood magic and then the protagonist is the only one that can get rid of it? What if all these things? I don't know. It's just a new thought. But now I have a whole story for that princess as well. And will I actually write it? Watch this space. Probably. Does it have anything to do with anything? No, but that's where a prince from a different story could come from. I'm tempted to like plot that story out at least just so I can see it, so I know how it progresses in the book. But at the same time, I kind of want to write a story about it. I really, really do. And there's part of me that's like, I can't do both because there is an interchange where they meet and there could be more progression that would have every other story. But depending on how the 2 of them are written, there could just be companion novels and it could work, hypothetically. Am I giving myself a lot of work? Yes, but I think that plot's something I'm gonna have to work out before, even just at a rudimentary stage, before I start my complete rewrite or revision. So now, before I'm allowed to revise, I have to get most of the novella down, or at least like a heap of it, so that more of the relationships and stuff make sense in my head. I have to work out the world map. I have to make sure I have actually named every character and not just think I have, or have a word bank of names for when I find the characters that, you know, I didn't end up naming. And I feel like I've realized that one of the characters' parents hasn't been named, which isn't like a big thing, but will be a big thing. It's just like a lot of world building and understanding the world at the moment. I'm not doing a lot of writing, although I'm about to start with this novella thing. The other thing that I did is, whenever I've created a Scrivener file for my stories, I've always just like redone the outline for everyone. So I made a template in my Scrivener so that it's easier when I need to start stories or if I want to move them into a new folder. The other reason I want to write the novella first is so that I'm forced to have more time away from the main story before I revise, just because of the things that have occurred to me that I need to change since I've been away from it for over a month. Like, I need to change subplots, like actually putting them in there. Like with the princess, she was just this thing that was gonna get killed eventually. But I kind of want to complicate that shit up. I know where all the holes in that first draft are that I can work on and change, and in changing the stuff with the princess, I might change how one of the scenes go down completely, her escape, which I hadn't occurred to me until now, that like I could change that. There could be a reason that she has to kill so many people or something like that. The king's gonna sacrifice her. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. He wasn't gonna sacrifice the princess, he was gonna sacrifice the captain. That would be fucking amazing. End it into Thought Bank. So yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. I'm gonna keep trying to write. I have my goals set for this year that I did in my walkthrough of my bullet journal. I've been sewing a lot. I've like finished my boyfriend's cool. Go grab it. By finished, I mean I finished the main pattern that I was working on. I need to do the borders, and then I need to do the backing, and then I need to sew it all together. But I have this, and you can't see how big it is, but it is very big. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna keep trying to make videos and talk about it. I also want to work on my sewing channel with my mum, but like she's been sick, there's been a lot of stuff going on with dad now. It's just been very busy, and we'll see how life goes. And I'm very sunburnt, my legs. It looks like I'm wearing white shorts and then my legs just turned pink. That's what being in the sun today did to me. Oh no, amazing. Yeah, that's all. What have you guys been up to and stuff? And I guess I'll talk to you later because I should go work on this novella stuff. Anyway, okay, bye!